we believe having a publicly owned platform that goes out and really looks for these potential opportunities to address some of our most pressing health challenges, where we bring it in, build it, and capitalize on the opportunity at the right time, is what Aditxt is all about. So it provides, obviously some diversification inherently in the business model. Of course, it comes with its own challenges, but really what Aditxt is, we go out, we look for these opportunities, for these assets, for these promising opportunities, whether it's about early detection of cancer, autoimmunity, which we'll talk about today, women's health. And the plan here is, again, we acquire them, we build them, we position them for global commercialization opportunities, and we capitalize them, whether it's through an IPO, a spinoff, sale, all the various options. So that's Aditxt.
So you have this unicorn farm where you grow these unicorns. Each of these, again, you have multiple shots on goal between Adimune, Adifem, and Pure each of these could be, for example, with Pure, which is right now you have plans to spin that out as as an IPO. Yeah, that could be valued. I think there's been talk of 100 million plus as a standalone public company, and how that reflects back on Aditxt. What it means for the Aditxt shareholders is, let's say you retain 60% of that, which is most likely, right? So that means if that thing is trading at 100 million, Aditxt would be worth 60 million just from Pure alone. So, which is basically a 12x from where the stock is right now, maybe even a little bit higher.
Today, we'll talk about autoimmunity, and whether it's type 1 diabetes or psoriasis or multiple sclerosis or stiff person syndrome. There are about 80 to 100 different autoimmune conditions. Okay. Similar to the field of oncology, who amongst us hasn't heard of type 1 diabetes, either directly or indirectly, or psoriasis, or stiff person syndrome, or multiple sclerosis, or. So when it comes to autoimmunity, is another big health challenge. That we founded Adimune as a subsidiary of Aditxt to go after that disease in a very unique approach, similar to what Pure is doing when it comes to cancer and oncology. Look, with Pure, their inflection point is to go commercial. That's the inflection point for Pure. For Adimune, on the other hand, is to get into human trials. So you can have big ideas, you can have big potentials, you can have promising molecules, but ultimately, can you actually begin human trials to show safety? Can we show efficacy? That's what we're focused on. And the punchline for Adimune is, our goal is to begin human trials as early as first half of 2026.
Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, where we bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. Companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point right now, and with multiple catalysts in place. And that perfectly describes Aditxt. I should also add, Aditxt is at a great valuation right now, which is another thing that we look for. We like stocks that are what we call asymmetric setups, where you have a cheap valuation. I think Aditxt is trading at $5 million market cap today, which is incredibly cheap, and multiple shots on goal for, these are potentially short-term, could be $100 million opportunities with these spin-outs. So with that said, Amro, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Jack. How you doing? Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. So Amro, so what we've been trying to do over the last couple of videos is really help investors to better understand the Aditxt story, because I think the opportunity for investors and the reason why the stock is cheap is, I think the market doesn't quite understand the business model. You have a couple of different operating units in the company. So as people understand the investment thesis, as they understand your business better, I think the stock should be trading at a much higher valuation, because again, based on what you have, the comps in your space would be, 10x higher. Like literally, this stock would be trading at, $12 a share if people understood it. So last week we spoke about Pure, which is an operation or a subsidiary that you're spinning out. That's the cancer detection unit. Today, we're going to be talking about Adimune, which is the autoimmune disorder, the biotech business that you have, developing treatments for autoimmune disorders. Next week we're going to have Adifem. Everything was with an A. So Adifem is next week. So these are the three subsidiaries that you have, and yeah, as I mentioned earlier, each of these you've acquired, or one of them you're in the process of acquiring. And I think, as you've explained last time, and I want you to maybe talk about it a little bit more today, is the idea is you acquire these assets, you build value, you add value, you build them up, and then you monetize them, whether through a potential IPO, spin out, etc. But the idea is to create value for the Aditxt shareholders. I mean,
no, so far. Jack, I really do look forward to these calls, at least, for now, having them weekly, because it is going to be critical for us and for our success and for all stakeholders that, people will begin to understand what Aditxt is. Are we a women's health company? Are we an autoimmune company? Are we a cancer detection company? It's important for our stakeholders and current and potential shareholders to truly understand what is the business model, what is the value proposition, right? So generally speaking, in biotech, we all understand that biotech, as an industry, as a field, represents great opportunities, but it also comes with great challenges. We all understand the concept of a young company in biotech that is working on a technology innovation molecule where, if it's successful, it's a massive opportunity. But we all understand also the failure and the probability of failure that comes with that. That's just biotech in general. The approach by Aditxt is fundamentally different. We believe having a publicly owned platform that goes out and really looks for these potential opportunities to address some of our most pressing health challenges, where we bring it in, build it, and capitalize on the opportunity at the right time, is what Aditxt is all about. So it provides, obviously some diversification inherently in the business model. Of course, it comes with its own challenges, but really what Aditxt is, we go out, we look for these opportunities, for these assets, for these promising opportunities, whether it's about early detection of cancer, autoimmunity, which we'll talk about today, women's health. And the plan here is, again, we acquire them, we build them, we position them for global commercialization opportunities, and we capitalize them, whether it's through an IPO, a spin-off, sale, all the various options. So that's Aditxt. And that's really important for people that are watching today, or people that are going to be watching this in the future, for us to continue reiterating the business model so they understand what ABC stands for: acquire, build, capitalize. And that's where we are now. As far as our market cap, look, as a co-founder and CEO of the company, of course, look, I can't possibly say that that the market cap is in sync with our potential. I can't. Now, certainly we have to repeat this. If you're a shareholder, or if you're thinking of buying the stock, you have to do your own due diligence. We're not going to give guidance. We're not going to tell you what the stock could be, up, down. That's really not the point. But the point is, right now, we are still a young microcap company, and we certainly believe that, upon the success of at least one of our programs, the goal here is to reflect on the overall success of Aditxt, and it becomes a catalyst for more innovations to acquire, to build, and capitalize. And that's kind of the background of Aditxt.
Yeah. And I think again, this is the exciting part about this, is that you have Aditxt. Again, I keep calling it a unicorn farm. I hope it does, you don't mind, but the unicorn, in case anybody doesn't know, is a startup company that becomes valued at $1 billion. Just saying, just in case somebody is not familiar with the term. So you have this unicorn farm where you grow these unicorns. Each of these, again, you have multiple shots on goal between Adimune, Adifem, and Pure Santa. Each of these could be for example, with Persanta, which is right now you have plans to spin that out as as an IPO. Yeah, that could be valued. I think there's been talk of 100 million plus as a standalone public company, and how that reflects back on Aditxt. What it means for the Aditxt shareholders is, let's say you retain 60% of that, which is most likely, right? So that means if that thing is trading at 100 million, Aditxt would be worth 60 million just from Persanta alone. So, which is basically a 12x from where the stock is right now, maybe even a little bit higher. So, and you have two more of those, shots on goal with Adimune, with Adifem. So, and again, Adifem is that's the women's health business that you're in the process of acquiring. We're going to talk about it next week in detail, but they're doing, if I'm not mistaken, $20 million in revenues. And there's again, I think you have a number of ways to increase the growth rate dramatically under the Aditxt umbrella. So, and that could be also another spin out at some point worth, let's call it 5x revenues, which is that's pretty normal in the in the healthcare space. 5-10 times revenues for something that's growing fast, maybe even more. So that's another 100 million plus exit for Aditxt. So now again, Adimune, which we're going to find out about in a couple of minutes, we're going to show the deck. But Adimune, let's say that's another 100. So you have these $100 million plus short-term or near-term potential exits, which is, I think, very exciting. Now, when I said billion-dollar potential, yeah, down the road, these things potentially have the opportunity to become, who knows where they can grow. Look, we've introduced stocks on this program at $1, that ended up going to $800 a share, like Axon. Nobody believed Axon. I think it was $1.20, excuse me. Which made the tasers, and that became $800. I think maybe actually $1,500 because I think they did split. So you never know how big these things can grow, these unicorns. So with that said,
and from our view, Jack, and look, of course, I think as people ask me what the stock could be, we don't really, we really don't, and I don't. Certainly, we as a company do not provide any guidance what the stock, and frankly, the company wouldn't know. I mean, market conditions, shorts, long, all that stuff, right? A lot of dynamics. But here is what I would say. From our point of view, when we're talking about the potential, look, again, I will repeat over and over again, there's always risk. Take a look at the filings, all the stuff, just biotech is biotech, startups are startups, they come with all challenges. And I'll always repeat that because people need to understand that's just the journey of advancing innovations. It comes with risks. We got to put that aside and talk about when it comes to quantifying the opportunity. Rather, from our point of view, let's talk about cancer detection. And I'm sure some of the people that were not on the call or, last time, when you're talking about cancer detection, and when we're talking about, 70%, I believe it was, when you're talking about early detection of cancer and 70% get detected too late, we all understand the value of early detection of cancer. Now, who amongst us, directly or indirectly, who hasn't been affected by cancer or heard the word cancer? People understand the magnitude of the challenge when it comes to cancer. So with Persanta, we're starting and we're focused on early detection of cancer as truly a way to address cancer. So rather than waiting for therapeutics, let's truly also focus on early detection of cancer. And we're starting with prostate cancer. So when you're talking about that field, look, everyone can begin to evaluate the opportunity when it comes to something as big as cancer. So that's just Persanta. Today, we'll talk about autoimmunity, and whether it's type 1 diabetes or psoriasis or multiple sclerosis or stiff person syndrome, there are about 80 to 100 different autoimmune conditions. Okay. Similar to the field of oncology, who amongst us hasn't heard of type 1 diabetes, either directly or indirectly, or psoriasis, or stiff person syndrome, or multiple sclerosis, or. So when it comes to autoimmunity is another big health challenge that we founded Adimune as a subsidiary of Aditxt to go after that disease in a very unique approach similar to what Persanta is doing when it comes to cancer and oncology. And that's, and that's really a way to evaluate for every individual who's watching us, reading about us, reading our website, reading our filings. Ultimately, the value of Aditxt will be determined by the success of its projects. And the success of each project, look, you can evaluate the opportunity of each based on what we know publicly, what the market is, what the opportunity is, how many people you know. And we're going after big challenges, oncology, autoimmunity, women's health, and, other potential programs that we look to bring under Aditxt.
Yeah. So I'm gonna turn over to the deck. You're gonna share kind of the story. I'm gonna drop off the screen and I'll come back afterwards for Q&A. Hopefully we'll get some audience questions. But I think one thing is important just to emphasize once again, because I can't emphasize this enough, is what's the key thing about, as far, when I look at this as an investor with Aditxt, is, the stock right now, the company's at an inflection point, right, where you have a couple of these opportunities. The company, Aditxt has been around for a while, right? Now you have a few of these opportunities are now approaching kind of that finish line where they're going to get that liquidity event, if you want to call it, as they say in the private equity business. Or they're going to get monetized or capitalized, as you're saying right now. But so again, we have, for example, you have Persanta. Let's say when that IPO, as we get some sort of clarity, or I don't know, when you get a little more news flow on that, people see that it's on the horizon. I think the stock could move dramatically. At the same time, when you close the Adifem deal, Adifem deal, which again, $20 million revenue business, I think that's expected to close in September. That again is another one of these catalysts, which will show that the company is at that inflection point where it's actually becomes, now you can have a real business, in a way where you have actual real revenues under the umbrella, and then I think people at that point will assign a value to the whole business model. I think right now, basically, the stock is almost like you're getting it for free. Again, anytime I look at these,
and that's
stocks,
true, Jack. That is absolutely true. I mean, look, right now, our stock is speculative, right? I mean, we're, what are we trading at? $1.20, right? It is speculative. And I believe it's disconnected from our value proposition. That's my belief. It is disconnected. It is what it is. That's what the market, and the market may be looking at it as a micro cap company. They're obviously putting probability as far as, how much money do they need? How much money do they need to raise? Can they stay?
I think I'm right. I respectfully disagree. I think what happens, the opportunity for investors is, we've seen this over and over. A lot of our stocks that end up increasing 1,000% or more. It's because the market doesn't understand in the microcap sector. There's no way to evaluate. That's the problem. There's just no way to sure, if you had, I don't know, if you were doing 50 million in revenues, you had some sort of P&L, you had earnings that people could look at. Then they could model it. They could kind of model what the thing is worth. Right now, you have this kind of, it's all blue sky potential right now. So the market doesn't know how to put a value, and that's why the stock is dirt cheap. So it could either get to become dirt cheap, or it could go sky high. It could go in one of those extremes. That's what we see in the market right now. Either
I agree. Jack, actually, no, I agree with you, because right now the stock is trading, it is what it is, right? Speculative. It's not really connected to our business model. I agree with you.
No, it's purely based on nothing, right?
It can be really, really dirt cheap, or it can be, whatever, right? So the key for us, which is also important, just so people understand, we are truly pushing to transition Aditxt where the market can begin to appreciate what that business model is by showing success, tangible success, right?
Right.
These milestones. So we're not looking at a biotech where it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now. We're looking at the Persanta commercialization followed by an IPO. You're looking at Adimune, which we'll talk about it today, which we'll talk about human trials as a major inflection point. You're talking about Adifem with the acquisition of Evofem, right? Those are the pieces that we as a company have to execute on, right? With the right resources, of course. We have to execute. So 2026, we can show how we can transition Aditxt from speculative, we're not sure what it is, to something tangible. Look, people will ultimately, value success. We understand that, and that's what we're focused on. The whole team is focused on each program and Aditxt team. How do we begin showing success? So with that, again, as we discussed, I'm not going to go through every slide because you can lose people certainly with some of the going through a PowerPoint. But maybe I'll switch back and forth between slides more as a reference, and we'll talk about autoimmunity and what Adimune is doing. And in fact, I am looking at the comments section. I do encourage people, if they have any questions as I'm talking about this, feel free to ask questions, right? So we'll begin with Adimune as a subsidiary of Aditxt, with a mission to address autoimmunity without reliance on immunosuppressants. And
Emma, what I'd like to do is just to make it easier for people to watch, I'm gonna disappear from the screen, so it's just gonna be you. I'm gonna come back when you're done, and we'll open up for Q&A, just for the format. It'll be
sounds good. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. So what we're talking about, when we're talking about autoimmunity, and just by way of background, so the audience understands what is autoimmunity in general. It is when our immune system begins to attack our own tissues. That's what it is. So somehow the immune system forgets that some of our tissues are self, and they will begin to attack it. So multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, psoriasis, stiff person syndrome, and 80 other different autoimmune diseases, the immune system will begin to attack our own tissues. So obviously our immune system is designed to protect our body and us against harm, against threats. That's what it's designed to do. When it starts attacking our own tissues, and somehow thinking that our own cells and tissues are threatening, it will begin to attack it. It will begin to damage our tissues, and it will cause different types of diseases. That's what autoimmune diseases are. And you look at SPS, one of the obviously famous people like Celine Dion. She has stiff person syndrome. That's an autoimmune disease. When you look at psoriasis, you can just look up online and see how many people around the world are suffering from psoriasis. When you look at type 1 diabetes, similar situation. So when you look at the millions of people around the world suffering from autoimmune condition, one condition or another, that's what it's all about. So for the past 50 some years, the whole concept is, as far as addressing autoimmunity, can you interfere with that rejection? Can you interfere with the immune system attacking our own tissues? And again, generally speaking, obviously there is a lot more scientific information that will have to be shared, but for the purpose of this conversation, immunosuppressants have been the method of addressing autoimmune diseases. So the immune system is punching, and immunosuppressants basically block the punch to attempt to slow down that rate of rejection. And the question is, is there an approach where we actually, instead of simply blocking the immune system from punching us, is there a way to remind and teach our immune system that these are our own tissues and not to attack it in the first place? That's the whole concept, and that's why we founded Adimune. And look, Adimune, objectively speaking, while it's preclinical, it is showing very promising data points where our approach could work in real life situations. Now, we will not know that until obviously we get into human trials, because human biology is human biology. But we've been working on approach where instead of and in lieu of suppressing the immune system, it is a way to program the immune system. Imagine programming the immune system using DNA, not modifying the DNA, but using DNA to program the immune system to teach it that such tissues are our own tissues. And that is the fundamental approach and the potential disruption of what Adimune can do for autoimmunity. So Adimune, as a second subsidiary, similar to Persanta, is pursuing addressing autoimmunity by teaching the immune system and reminding our immune system that that these are our own tissues. So with that, when you look at the market, and similar to what I always share with with our audience, we can talk about statistics, we can talk about markets, we can talk about psoriasis market, we can talk about type 1 diabetes, but look, a market or an industry or opportunity like autoimmunity, everyone can appreciate how large the opportunity is. When you're talking about 80 or 100 different autoimmune diseases, type 1 diabetes, I mean, look, your audience now and future audience, how many of us have not heard about type 1 diabetes? Or how many of us have not heard about psoriasis? Or, multiple sclerosis? We all have stories, directly or indirectly, as far as autoimmune diseases. So where we are right now, as far as Adimune, we've been working for the last 5 years on advancing the technology and the platform forward towards human trials. And human trials, as we were talking earlier, Jack, I know I can't see you right now on the screen, but as we were talking earlier, the inflection point for Adimune, sorry, Jack, you don't have to, I'm just gonna, but similar to what we were talking about earlier about Persanta. Look, with Persanta, their inflection point is to go commercial. That's the inflection point for Persanta. For Adimune, on the other hand, is to get into human trials. So you can have big ideas, you can have big potentials, you can have promising molecules, but ultimately, can you actually begin human trials to show safety? Can we show efficacy? That's what we're focused on. And the punchline for Adimune is our goal is to begin human trials as early as first half of 2026. And for full transparency, the reason it's taking time, it's a matter of resources. But we believe we're almost there. We completed our preclinical studies. We actually manufacture the products. There are more work to be done, but our goal is to enter human trials in first half of 2026. We're starting here in the US, with focus on a proof of concept with SPS, which is stiff person syndrome. That is a central nervous system type indication. We believe that would be a great proof of concept indication to start with, followed by type 1 diabetes and psoriasis in Germany with some of our partners over in Germany. So these are the 3 indications, starting with SPS here in the US and followed by type 1 diabetes and psoriasis. And there's actually a potential of doing SPS as well as type 1 diabetes in the US. So let me just summarize this really quickly, and Jack, maybe we can get back on, for quick commentary. We've advanced a platform that is designed to retrain the immune system instead of suppressing the immune system. If you want to look at data points, if you want to look at objectively how real it is, we have more than 150 patents issued for this platform, global, real. When you look at the partners we have involved that have already been mentioned publicly, go around and look at the partners we have around the globe to help us advance this platform to human trials. And the fact that we're aiming for first half of 2026 to begin human trials. And again, Jack, no need to mention, yes, we obviously have to obtain regulatory approvals. We can't guarantee that. That's a process we have to go through. But if we do, and we begin human trials, now Adimune has reached an inflection point where we took it from IP, patents, ideas to human trials, and that's what Adimune is all about.
And here's the thing. I mean, as soon as you go into human trials, what are biotech stocks valued at? I mean, again, we've been in a biotech bear market for a couple of years, so valuations are low. But even with that said, I mean, a biotech stock which has a drug that's in clinical trials, human trials, depending on the stock, but like what you have could be easily 50 million plus valuation day one as soon as you start human trials. So that's again, you mentioned second quarter of 2026. So we're talking about roughly
first half of 2026.
First half, okay, first half of 26. Okay, so you're talking about 9 months away, basically, potentially 9 months away, which is and by the way, that alone. So I think if you just had Adimune, you'd be trading at a valuation of more than where you are right now. So I think that's the opportunity, because market cap of Aditxt under $5 million right now, and you have these three major catalysts, these three major shots on goal. For each could be $100 million plus valuation events within coming months. We're talking about within months away. Within in the case of Adifem could be a couple of months. September, I think acquisition closing date is the plan. Then you have Persanta coming up, the potential IPO coming up, and also maybe within the next 4 to 6 months. So there's again multiple shots on goal. Any of these could be catalysts for this thing to become a 10x. And again, that's why I find it very exciting, because again, you look at the bottom. At the bottom, we have a crawl at the bottom of the screen. We're showing only some of our 10 baggers recently, not all of them, but just some in the last couple of years, stocks that we've introduced that increased 1,000% or more. And every single one of them was very, very similar to where Aditxt is today. Almost all, they all have a kind of a pattern. They all fit a pattern, what we call, our 10 bagger blueprint. And again, nothing is guaranteed. These are all high risk stocks. And as you emphasized yourself, this is public. It's basically public venture capital, and you're basically a public venture capital company in a certain way, focused on the life sciences sector. So again, that's what I find is so compelling about this. Sorry to interrupt. Okay, back to
Jack. Actually, Jack. Yeah. So in a way, I kind of went through the the presentation. I mean, this slide particularly is about the tox studies, right? We've done a lot of studies that are required before we submit to for FDA approval. I mean, this is just a slide that talks about some of the milestones, but to summarize the milestones, maybe to summarize the status and what we're looking to do. We exclusively licensed the platform about 5 or 6 years ago. We assembled the team. We immediately started working on a product development plan to identify the potential candidate for the eventual product, at least for the initial product. We've gone through preclinical studies. We've gone through the manufacturing process. We actually have a product, a physical product that exists. So this is no longer IP. This is no longer ideas on paper. It is a physical product that does exist. And right now the team is really focused on pre-IND meetings, setting that up, securing that, figuring out what is required to do the filing with the FDA, what the FDA may or may not look for. And again, the goal is to enter human trials first half of 2026. That's how close this is. The other important piece of information that we need to emphasize, knowing that, look, as a young company, again, we do have our existing financial obligations, which all filed publicly. But this is not a biotech platform that's going to require another $50 or $100 million to get to human trials. That's really, really important. So you may have the greatest platform, promising platform. But look, if you need $200 million to get to human trials, look, it's a major hurdle. We agree, right? Right now, what we have is about probably $3 to $5 million away from entering human trials. That's what we need for this specific projects. Again, Aditxt has its own financial obligations, but for Adimune as a platform, we're looking at $3 to $5 million to enter to human trials. That's how close this product is, and that is important for people to understand that we're not $50 or $200 million away from achieving at least that initial human trials, in addition to regulatory approvals, of course.
And how far would that take you? So, $3 to $5 million would that take you through just phase 1, phase 2? Like, how far would it take you?
So so that would get us into human trials, to begin human trials. The human trials, we are estimating about 1.5 years, 18 months. in total, inclusive of that 5, it would probably be $10 to $11 million. So for a couple of years, it would be 10 to 11 million. Now, here's the deal. If we actually go through phase 1, 2A, so we're not starting with healthy individuals. We're actually starting with individuals, or we would start with individuals that already have the disease, right? Which really puts us into phase 1, 2A category. Look, Jack, I mean, we believe, and I'll always say that we believe if we, inflection points will be starting human trials, or I would even say inflection points would be receiving regulatory approvals and starting human trials. Showing safety of the product would be another milestone, and finally showing efficacy. If we can show that ADI as a platform can truly program our immune system to retrain it to recognize our own tissues that are targeted tissues, I think everybody can do their own, evaluation as far as what the value could be. I mean, that would be,
Right. It's $1 billion plus. It would be like a blockbuster drug at that point.
It's not a single, and it's not. It would not be a single drug. It would be a platform starting with SBS, type 1 diabetes, and psoriasis. Now, that is speculation. That is, future speculation. But people need to understand what Adimune as a company could achieve over the next 6 months, 12, 18 months.
So, Amr, I got a question. So, again, I think one of the challenge and the opportunity is we've been talking about this, is that the stock potentially right now, based on the catalyst that you have, the operate, the 3 units that you have, it should be worth, again, $10-12 purely based on comps. That's not a big number. It's only like, that would be a $40-50 million valuation, which is reasonable. I mean, even Adimune alone could be worth again $50 million by itself. As as soon as let's say you file the IND, with the FDA, that could make it a $50 million valuation, a standalone opportunity. So the question is, again, you've talked about unleashing the shareholder value by spinning out IPO for Persanta. What about for Adimune? Is there a plan to maybe spin that out as an IPO, because that in itself as a standalone business could be worth, again, $50 million. It's not getting its full value because it's inside under this umbrella where people may not understand it. So again, it's an opportunity for investors, but it's a challenge for the company.
Yeah, think so there's always a capitalization plan, right, for all of our companies. That's part of our business model. For Adimune, whether it's an IPO or a major licensing deal by larger pharma is also on the table. See, unlike Persanta will put it on the path of IPO. For Adimune, the potential for licensing is there, and that I believe will be determined by the inflection points that we achieve over the next 6 months, 12 months, and beyond. So that is another possibility for Adimune, Jack.
Okay, when you say license, do you mean basically licensing the whole platform, the whole technology platform to a major pharma company or biotech company? Is that the idea?
Or licensing a product, right? Because so it could be the platform or it could be a product.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's a platform, again, all depends on the inflection points that we achieve. Look, you get into human trials, it's a different ballgame, because now you switch from preclinical to humans. Then you show safety, it's a different milestone. Then if you show efficacy, look, I am speaking out of my own belief as the CEO of this company. We show efficacy for a platform that can modulate and truly program the immune system behavior to address autoimmunity. I mean, that becomes, in my view, the holy grail of how we can approach diseases.
So efficacy, to get to the efficacy, again, this is down the road, but how far away would that be? Where in phase 2 efficacy?
That would be phase 1 2A. We should know data point. So it's the first phase.
Okay.
Right? This phase is obviously approval to get to start or to initiate human trials. safety, and then we will have data points to obviously you'll have to do further studies beyond that.
Okay.
That initial efficacy would be important for us, would be
Okay.
really important for us.
So initial efficacy, or at least the data points on efficacy would be in phase 1/2A, and when would that be? Assuming you get into, again, we're making a couple of assumptions that there's safety. So there's a couple of assumptions, but let's say you file the IND in let's call it next April, May, right?
Yeah.
At what point, how far away would the efficacy data? When would you be getting that? When would the data points be released if it came up? If you could
right, all the F's in the world,
yeah,
it would be around probably maybe 12 months, probably 12 to 18 months, somewhere around there.
Okay. So basically, so so it's important for investors to understand, so they can kind of model kind of the risk reward ratio. And again, the thing with these biotech stocks is the timeline. It's kind of a long timeline, and we know we have a lot of very impatient investors. The good news is, though, Aditxt, you have a bunch of near-term catalysts with, again, your other operations, which I think is very smart.
But Jack, I don't see. This is actually what's also good about Adimune. It's not just the 18 months. We're talking about initiating human trials would be a near-term milestone, right? Within the first.
Well, there's definitely a bunch of early milestones which you get, but if you can show efficacy, then it's a whole other ballgame.
It's a different. I mean, you show efficacy just for the indications that we're working on. That's one thing. But now, if we can show that this is a platform that can address other autoimmune diseases, it's a whole different ballgame. But just to make it clear, we would not wait until efficacy to pursue partnerships. We would not. I mean, we would pursue partnerships.
I guess as soon as you have some good data, maybe as soon as you have some compelling data, right? No, that's very interesting. I think obviously these are you'd be working with sophisticated players who can I'm sure they understand what you're doing, so they could. But yeah, okay. So basically, there is some near-term valuation, upside valuation catalysts coming up. Again, we talk about the Adimune. Again, if you show efficacy, then we're talking about $100 million plus valuation potential for Adimune by itself. Based on comps in the space, in biotech space. I mean, we've seen it before, right? Even more. Again, and also I think the biotech market will be much better in the next, let's call it 6 to 12 months. We're coming out of a major depression in biotech stocks. So, okay, very interesting. Amro. So to wrap up, you have milestones coming up with Adimune, and again, I think let me repeat the question. Maybe we went over it. Is with Adimune, because it will require 5 million plus, right? Would you consider some sort of some sort of off the balance sheet thing now, so that you don't have dilution? Maybe again, I asked you before, but would you consider maybe some sort of spin out or IPO, before we get to that point?
I don't know if we would consider an IPO before 5 million. I mean, you really, because again, look, reaching human trials and the ability to start human trials would be a major inflection point, we believe. And if we do an IPO or a licensing, I believe it has to be after initiating human trials, and it would be the right thing for Aditxt value as well, is to wait until you achieve that. Now, Jack, that said, look, I mean, it all depends on opportunities that come by. Of course, Adimune will evaluate them. Right now, we're really doing everything we can to see what we can do to get to human trials in first half of next year.
Okay. And again, you never know in the biotech space. Look, there's a lot of companies out there. Everybody's looking to, expand their pipeline. All these pharma companies, other companies in various stages, and you never know when your phone might ring and somebody might offer you a very compelling deal. Okay, so with that said, so today we got the update on Adimune. Next week we're going to have you back to talk about Adifem, which is the women's health business, which again you're acquiring, that's doing right now 20 million in revenues. And
yes.
that
So Adifem, similar to Adimune, similar to Persanta, it is our subsidiary that we founded to focus on women's health. And the anchor to Adifem is the acquisition of Evofem. It comes with the team, it comes with the business. They reported last year $20 million, 19 million and change. The target is end of September. There are certain conditions that have to be met. Senior lender, we always put it in all of our press releases, their shareholder approval, and other conditions as well, Jack. But yes, we are working very closely with Evofem and their team, awesome team, Sandra and everyone really working very closely with us to get Adifem and Evofem transaction completed as soon as we can.
Okay, and I guess the idea, and again we'll talk about more next week, but the idea with Evofem or Adifem will be to make it a platform, women's health platform. Maybe you'll develop, acquire other drugs, things like that, and build that into a standalone business. That's the idea.
You got it.
And again, 20 million is potentially 5x is 100 million valuation potential. So again, multiple shots on goal. So let's see. Do we have any questions? Any questions? People are quiet today. No, we have no questions here. Okay, Emerald. On that note, I want to thank you. Thank you everybody for tuning in today, and we'll see you next week, probably the same time, same on a Tuesday, for the update on Adifem.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks.